Stanley Cup, which was 1992, their second in a row, and they might have been what Glenn and I would agree was a dynasty had they been able to win 3 in a row. But Healy and the New York Islanders, in either order, happened to stop the Penguins in the second round of the playoffs that season, and you have some memories of taking on Mario and company.
Well, what I remember most was the coaching brilliance of Al Arbour. And you think about that Penguins team. You had Mario Lemieux, you had Yager, you had Francis, you had Tocchet. They started the year with a 10-game unbeaten streak. They finished the year with a 17-game consecutive win streak, best in the National Hockey League, a record. And on top of that, you put a President's Trophy and Mario Lemieux with 160 points and a young New York Islanders team. We were in big trouble. So right before that series, Al Arbour sat down in the room with each player, and he started with Pat Flatley, and he asked him, could he tie a shift with Mario Lemieux? So, of course, Patrick said yes. He went to the next player, Ray Ferraro.
Asked you if he could tie your skates.
And he said yes. We know Ray has trouble with that. And at the end of the day, by the time he got to the 15th player, he said, there you go, guys, now we finished one period. And he did that exercise all the way through until eventually we actually believed that we could beat this top National Hockey League team, arguably a dynasty. But we were on the ropes in Game 6. The Penguins were 20 minutes away from knocking us out of the postseason.
Really, Healy takes you to Game 6 of that series. Can they force a Game 7 in Pittsburgh?
Well, it was tied going into the third period, and what I remember most about this, Tommy Fitzgerald. He scored 2 shorthanded goals that game. It is still a National Hockey League record, 2 in one game, tying him for who else but Davey Keon. We win the game 6-5 on the heels of an empty net, and it was an exciting time to be a New York Islander, a chance to go to Game 7 and to be 60 minutes away from dethroning a champion. But what I remember most about going into Game 7, other than that great celebration, I look a little bit like Anna Kournikova there, was the fact that the Islanders didn't have flights booked for us. They didn't think we were going to get to Game 7. So guess what we had to do? We had to split the team up. Half flew out of MacArthur, half flew out of LaGuardia, and we went in for Game 7 to play the Penguins. Winner takes all.
And this was a dramatic ending. I can remember that. What else can you tell me about it?
Well, Game 7 was a game that the Penguins were a very nervous hockey team, and we went up 3-1. It was a very physical game, and boy, did it start early. Kevin Stevens probably won't remember that hit, but we certainly did remember it. We were up 3-1, and 2 late goals by the Pittsburgh Penguins made it 3-2, and then eventually 3-3. And the full retreat by the New York Islanders were on. We were in big trouble. Every time we got the puck, it seemed like all we could do was ice the puck. However, we held on, and all it took was one chance by a player by the name of David Bollock, a guy that Al Arbour, whose brilliance put into the game, hadn't played a lot that season, actually hadn't played a lot that night. But it was Martin Stracker who took a wrong step forward instead of backwards, and a great pass by Ray Ferraro, and it's in the back of the net. And that was a great coaching job by Al Arbour in a couple ways. First of all, Scotty Bowman is the coach. Al Arbour didn't have Scotty Bowman's teams in Montreal, didn't have them in Detroit, and he certainly didn't have them that night. And the other thing I remember, we won the game, and we went for a few beers to get on the bus because it was celebratory, correct? Al told the guys, 1 case of beer, that's it. So in we went to the little establishment. We grabbed 6 cases of beer, and Pat Flatley and I put them up through the back of the bus in the fire exit. We carried the 1 case of beer onto the bus like we were told to, and Al Arbour, who had just won one of his biggest games, looked at us and said, I said 1, not 6. So even as a winning coach, he still paid attention to what we were doing in the back of the bus. But good for Al Arbour. And that Pittsburgh team, they dismantled that team from that point on. There were 12 new players in that lineup the next year.
And the Penguins have never been the same, of course, nor have I.